So there's definitely a few things that everybody should have completely completed. In the very least, when you're going to want to be doing anything, the first thing you should always do is work on your archer. It is by and far the easiest one to get up to a reasonable attack rating. So when you're going for blazons, you don't necessarily need all attacking or all in range. And in my opinion, unless you're coining, you don't want those attributes. You want just the basic range troop attack. You just want the basic ground troop attack. Having in rally buffs is great and all, but when they're in rally or attacking, you end up not having those in-city buffs. The in-city buffs are going to be one of your major issues. And there are definitely ways to get that by going to your tavern and just going to the recruit. When you look at, um, if anything ever opens, when you look at portraits in the tavern and you're not sure if a general is acquirable, so like it'll say not recruited or recruitable. And if you are going to awaken a general from the tavern or at any general, you can actually check to see how many copies that you have of that said general. So in this case, I have 6 copies that would need to be dismissed to become fragments to then awaken him. You can also look at the buffs of said generals. So in this case, Skanderfeld is the free hospital general, and awakening him gives a lot of your in-city buffs. So just in this one general, you have quite a few smaller buffs. Then you should always take into account of a lot of the specialties. The specialties on a lot of the free generals from the tavern are not overly that great. Minus from the debuff one, which I do believe applies when they have them. I've never actually checked, but it's fairly cheap to get nevertheless. If it does work, it does work. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Kind of thing. You also have the third specialty that does always apply when you're using them. And if you're wondering if it is a guaranteed apply, it will say applied to hospital officer. Having any equipment on duty generals does not do anything unless you have some of the purchased gear. And you can see what I mean here. One sec. When I talk about purchase gear and it applying for said duty generals, it'd be specifically from higher rewards in events or higher cake rewards. See cake 8 and cake 10. You can get said council's tunics and then the officer equipment scrolls. But for the most part, a lot of people aren't going to have access to that. Another thing that you should always keep in mind, there can be some smaller buffs to be gained from having duty generals in a lot of the in-city buildings. They don't necessarily have to be the appropriate general. Like in this case, you have Tomotomi Hideyori or Yoshi or fucking Toyota, whatever the hell his name is. In this case, by having him at the super rally spot officer level, you can see that by having 1400 attack, 1400 leadership, and 3.3 million power, it does provide you with a 30% march size capacity and then a flat march size of 70,000. In this case, you can also click on it to see the stars on said general. And again, you gain a lot of in-city buffs from the duty generals getting them awakened, and it is always worth the while of doing it. Like so, right now I have gear on said general, You do not have to keep any of the gear on them. So what you can do, you can always go to cultivate, and then you can cultivate up the stats that you need for said building. You do not need to go with, in this case, defense or politics. You can simply just go to quick uh, cultivate, and then in this case he needed leadership and attack. So you can just have leadership and attack, and by using gems can do this very quickly. It is not a massive gem cost, but it does grant a lot of buffs. But like things like, say, the stables. The stables doesn't actually give you any meaningful buffs. What I would recommend is not wasting any real resources on putting anyone in for your, say, stables, your workshop, anything like that, unless you do have like the free tavern general. Like in this case, for the workshop, it's Guan Euro, and they do give very small buffs. So 5% here, 10% there. They add up overall, and because it's base buffs, it's not attacking or in city. That applies in all scenarios, kind of like I was saying with like the Blazons. Another place where you can see a lot of buffs to be acquired under Spirit Beast. Once you get them up to, I believe it's level 10 or something. So once you get them up to level 10, you can then use Beast Seals. So Beast Seals can be added in to grant you some buffs. Now, every one of the Spirit Beasts are different. They all provide different buffs. And one thing that you should be able to do, say I wanted to work on more mounted troop attack. It's fairly low level. Every time you level them up, the cost gets more and more and more expensive. So in this case, say I wanted to work on my attacking mounted troop attack. I could hit my beast seal and say I wanted to take it up to 10. After about 10, they do start getting quite a bit more expensive. So I can just then go through and click on all of the spirit beasts I have unlocked and maybe find another one that doesn't have as high of a cost. So like in this case, if I had Nandi at level 10, I could then use 120 rather than say 270 to get the same amount of buffs. Another thing that can be mentioned if you are operating with a few alts, you can get march speed to monsters from B seals, and that will greatly fucking help with your alt joining more and more rallies. The more rallies they join, the more resources you get. The more resources you get, the faster you can move up in keep levels. More keep levels, more buffs, more research, and so on. There's another aspect of the B seals. You can actually see that with these. So when you unlock the Spirit Beast, they do grant just these basic buffs. But upon getting to a higher Beast Seal level, and you can see the Beast Seal level of your current Spirit Beast right up here in the top right corner, you can get a few more buffs. A lot of these are defending buffs, so a defending buff doesn't reveal itself when you get scouted. It reveals itself when you're actually defending your keep and or outside of your keep. So in this case it says defending mounted troop attack. If you had 1000% in city mounted troop attack, you get attacked, you'll have 1010% on the battle report. So in this case, you get the basic 10% by just owning the Spirit Beast, but you also will get another 10% by having the Spirit Beast to level 22. Also by having your pasture, and that is the building that itself. You should always make sure when you are bringing up your Spirit Beast that your pasture is going to be at an appropriate level for any of the Spirit Beast seals procs that you could get from some of these. So by having your beast seals reach 20 and your pasture being level 30, you get those buffs. If that makes sense. Another thing that you can always pay attention to, uh, and that is in regards of the spirit beasts themselves. If you look at them, a lot of the times the attributes that they have are not better than a lot of the dragons. There are a few of the spirit beasts that are well worth your while to have on attacking generals, but in the most case, you're going to actually be using them on subsidies. When you have spirit beasts on your subsidies, the debuffs do apply. In this case with the fucking winged sheep, he does give you ranged troop attack debuffs, and he also gives you ranged troop defense debuffs when defending. So that would be just in your keep and just when you're outside of your keep in a tile. That now with the when defending doesn't apply when reinforcing, just when your name is the primary name on an objective. Another one that is a really, really good one to have would be Jorgamander, the fucking snake, as he gives siege HP debuffs and more ranged troop attack debuffs is your primary thing that you're going to be looking for. Haiti with his mounted troop attack debuffs, and like you can go all the way down and through with a lot of them. A good one to mention is also Pegasus. Or no, Bird of Hurricane, I think. Yes, Bird of Hurricane actually gives you double drop rate from monsters. So he can actually be added onto one of your auto join generals. And I wouldn't work on him too much unless you have an excess of the Beast Seals experience. And in this case, there is a fucking excess of it. You can also see other ones like the Lord of Lava. He does provide troop load. Troop load will help with plundering if you're ever in the scenario to be able to do so. The Behemoth King gives march size, and the Thunder Scorpion gives march speed. He is another good one that you can add to one of your auto join generals, and that can be helpful for both coiners and for smalls. Then moving on to the art hall. So the art hall is a great place to get a lot of buffs. So you can open up the scrolls then pile up, and then once they pile up, they give you some attributes with a lot of them. So like in this case, say if I was in a desperate need to get gold, I have a lot of the scrolls, and for a free-to-play player, the next level on either one of your tactic scrolls or your art treasure will take a long time because you require the art treasure scroll chest to be able to go to the next level on them. So you do get a lot of these chests just by playing and whatever. So you can go to here and actually sell these things, and it does provide you with some level of gold. It's not a major level of gold, and you shouldn't ever be constantly doing it, and the only time you would want to do it is if you're done all your current upgrades. So in this case, still needs 660 or so. But once you level that out, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16 of those. So that would be like 8,000 of those scrolls that you would probably and or likely need to get to go up to the next level, and you only get like 44 from killing monsters, and I believe it's 10 from doing your dailies, and then you might find 5 to 15 from the events and the free categories of it. If you're not coining for them specifically, there is a pack to be able to coin for it specifically, and an event where you can actually disenchant say the Great Imperial Crowns scrolls to be able to make better ones, because in this case nobody needs gold production speed and like buffs for your subsidies. They don't really help. So research. If you can open up your academy and it be all done and still have any research stones, there is absolutely no reason why you should be making any troops. You should be forcing yourself to go to the next level. You pretty much just want to look at all of the everything that you can in any one of those buildings and always upgrade them all. A big one would be like I don't know what's going on with that. Probably being a bug. But yeah, it's just being buggy. But you always want to have everything that you can do in these buildings completed to the level of keep that you're at. Now I'm getting sidetracked and confused because I seen that this keep isn't done all of them. So you shouldn't ever be building troops if you still have tactics and research stones. You should always be working on anything that you can work on. And for the most part, you should always work on your range, then your calves, and then your ground, as your range will be easier to be buffed up. You're, they gain a lot of attack power very easily, and it's one of the more effective marches to have at a lower attack rating. If you're throwing a 3000% ranged troop attack at somebody, say, like that K41 that we were attacking, you might actually get a few troops. Now, in that same regard, ranged troop is going to be one of the more heavily debuffed troops, but that can be offset a lot by just having the attack power that will usually be in most rallies. But what is not effective at all would be, say, having 2000% ground or mounted. In a case like that, you are being outbuffed by 1500%. You also are being debuffed on top of that. So all you're doing is sending more points than what you would gain, so your attacks are going to be negative. And that is especially apparent if there's a splat. If it's a full clear, you're not losing all your troops, so you may become positive in the attack. But in a lot of the times, the first attack will be a splat, sometimes the second, and in even some cases the third, and then going for a clear on the fourth. So you'd be negative in 3 of those attacks and not provide much meaningful difference. So working on your buffs when joining rallies is massive. Another place you can get a few buffs is actually in the Goddess Attendant building. You can get the books, and you can also upgrade them. Oh, easy way to upgrade them. I've already done it, but you can just go to make sure you have nothing selected in the book categories, and then by selecting green, blue, purple, or whatever. If you still have purple books, or you're still working on purple books, you can then go to book category, and then you can only select the troop types that you have a half decent book. So say you have a good purple, you have a good orange, you're not going to need any more of those purples, so you can actually use them to upgrade some of your other attributes. When you're upgrading, it's not upgrading the book, it's upgrading the position. So if you go and then change this book out, you still have a level 18. Those buffs do apply down here on this section here, and you can actually see them there. So in this case, you're gaining about 50%. You can see your overall attributes that you're acquiring from this building in itself, right here up in the top corner. You can see here where your unlocks are for building up the building. For the most part, most people should go to 9 because, like I said, a lot of the smalls should not focus at all with Siege. Siege is a very difficult one to get meaningful buffs towards, and that should be something you focus on at a much later date when you have everything else up to snuff. You can also purchase an extra 5 of the Goddess Honor tokens, so that's for your regular purple one. They do have a small chance of dropping orange scrolls. There is a pack. It is kind of meh. It's one of those. This is one of those long-term grind kind of things. You should never disenchant any of the orange books that you get, because here there are some small tasks that you can get. So, like owning one mounted book with 3 orange attributes can give you some of that Dust of Wisdom. It can be used to upgrade books and small amount of resources and some little buffs that you can get from it. So by just hoarding them, you can get all of those buffs. Another place you can get your buffs up is actually with the Civ card packs. In the very least, what you should attempt to do with all of them is going through and having all the orange attributes. So that would be your first level up. Ideally, you get some purples in them, but they do provide some smaller buffs. So in this case, by having all 8 of the cards, you get some, attack and ground, troop defense. By having all, you get 8% ground troop attack. This applies both in city in this case, attacking, reinforcing everywhere. Also gives you 2 more of the card packs. The chance to get epics and your commons can be seen right there. When you get in oranges, it's kind of a really low chance. One of the big ones, you should only focus on Japan as your first one. By focusing real hard on this one, you can acquire a lot of ranged troop attack debuffs. Um, for a lot of the free-to-play players, you don't really need all of these. So Japan, Korea are big ones for giving you ranged troop attack, and then even Europe. Europe gives, I believe, something. Maybe just mounted. I don't know. I thought it did. Maybe it's America. Yeah, America. America gives range troop and siege machine defense, but it only does it up to, I believe, the 8 out of 8. Yeah, so the 8 out of 8 for the gold cards, and having 2 diamonds gives you 16% range troop attack. That's not a meaningless amount. But anything higher than that, it only gives you siege buffs. So you don't need to focus on that unless you think it's time to actually start focusing on siege. But unless you're coining and getting the Civ gear, it's not going to go too well for you. And much like the Japan, Arabia and Russia are your big ones for your ground buffs. And then I believe Europe is another one that provides a lot of decent ground buffs and mounted buffs. Uh, there's a few thoughts to how to get them. You can always hoard them up and then just compose when you get to 10, and that's free. Another way that you can do this is by going to the card exchange, exchanging cards with other players. If you're friends with somebody, you can actually both work on a card pack together. Say you are working on Korea and your buddy's working on Japan. you can trade the red cards. So when you, or the gold cards, say if you're trying to get the diamond, a lot of the times when you're composing them, you'll get the gold variants. You could trade, say, the Nike of Samaras with your buddy that has the gold Fontainebleau or whatever. That's one way to save a few of the fragments. You can also go to demolish. So demolishing is a great way to get your recycles, and the recycles can be used to awaken said cards. Um, One of the big ways I would say to do it, you should never disenchant any of the oranges because they're a lot harder to acquire, especially disenchanting the coin packs. So you get a few of them for free from each one of the big events, right? So, like in this case, I can disenchant all 6 of my 7 branch swords because I already have it as a diamond. So you can see here, that means I have that card as a diamond. I also have that card as a diamond. In this case, I would only have this one as a gold, or as a silver, so that means I don't have any um, progress done on this card in particular. For a lot of the purchase packs of cards, I would recommend not getting any of them done up except for specifically the rights of the gods. So in the rights of the gods, you can see by having all 8 cards, you gain 400 mounted troop attack. By having 4 golds, you gain another 300. And yeah, so that's 700 mounted troop attack, and that applies to your T1s, and that's pretty huge. That's like having an extra refine. So there's a lot of buffs to be acquired here, but like you look at some of like the Triumphal Ceremony, like yeah, sure, there's some buffs to get, but they should be focused more on after the fact of getting the base packs done up and done up fairly well. And then moving on to generals. Now, I don't know what any of the refines are on this account or link, but in the very, very fucking least, if you're going to be joining any fucking rallies, having an awakened general, having your specialties done, and your skill books completed on both your leading general and your assistant general are absolutely mandatory. You do not need Civ gear for the most part. There is a lot of Civ gear to be gotten free to play by just joining your rallies and doing the out of main event wheel, so like the Wheel of Civilization. You might get 1 supremacy frag there and maybe 2 or 3 conquest frags from doing that. And you should, like I've said before, you should focus first on your range general. So a big one would be having a Plagnet bow. It gives a lot of attack. So just this one piece of equipment gives you 95% and 110%. This should be and always should be the first piece of supremacy that you get because it'll be the most impactful for what you can do. And having the refines done. So in this case, by getting all the refines up to a gold stat, it allows you to open up the advanced refining on civilization gear, and that can be done right here in advanced refining. So there's now a new event where you can actually do your advanced refining, and it will help you place for more of these coins that are right here in the new consumption event. So these coins here, you can acquire them from completing all the subtasks, these Hermes gold coins. So by doing all your consumption, and these can be used to get a few fairly decent things. For a free-to-play player, this is an intriguing thing, but right beside it is a very intriguing thing. So we refer to these as red generals. Typically, they can only be coin for. There's not almost any way to get these for free, apart from now this event and this the out of main event. You can get those daily chests, and at 1800 you can also get them. There's a lot of really good generals in here, and what you'd be looking for in a lot of these said generals is not necessarily what their ascensions are. So you're not going to be able to ascend them. You might be able to get to the 2-star, but if you look at the main attributes, so I just picked a random one out. So she provides some range and siege buffs, but then you also look at the specialties. They also give a lot of specialties in these cases. So that's quite a chunk of buffs. Another aspect that you can go with is sub-generals. So having these exclusive sub-generals give massive amounts of debuffs and really good specialties on them as well. Another thing you should be looking at is making sure you have all your sub-generals. So in this case, I have sub-general in a sub, and I have a specialty on it. You should always have all Parthian gear. Having a lot of the skill books doesn't really do a lot. Rebirth being one really big one because it gives you a 5% survival rate. So that means you're less likely to have a sub blown out in one attack. You do not need refines on any of the gear that's placed on your subs, as it doesn't give you buffs anywhere else besides that sub. And let's be honest, 10,000 T7 archers that are coming from your subsidies do not need the buffs. They're not going to do anything remarkable at the very least. Another thing is cultivation of your sub-generals. If you look right here, troop death to wounded from politics, you should always do some of your politics on your sub-generals. The ascensions of them do apply as long as they are debuffs. So in this case, by having him as 2-star, you get these extra attributes on top of his main attribute. And like I said earlier, your debuff attributes do apply when they are placed on a sub-city. What else? Oh, dragons. So when you're doing any of your dragons, there's a few things that you should be doing. You can feed them. Feeding them gives them more levels. At level 10, they allow your general not to die if you are in an attack or in a defense. It gives you a 100% survival rate. By clicking on right here, you can actually see what leveling them up provides for benefits. In this case, the Thebes is level 10. And in my opinion, Thebes is kind of meh for a free-to-play player because it gives a lot of siege attributes. But one of the bigger things that you can actually get from having said Thebes would be you actually get a higher level on your refinements, and that'll be the second thing we talk about with them. So having refinements on your dragons should always be done. It is extremely cheap to do so, as it only costs the blue crystals when you're doing your refinements. Never fucking do badge refines. Badges are a very finite resource. They can only be acquired in very few scenarios, and you do need a metric fuck ton of them to go up to Apollo gear to feed the dragons that are up on the wall. So like all your sacred dragons, you should only ever do gem cultivates on them. And then you can go over to talents, and this is what I'm talking about with like Thebes not maybe being the greatest for a free-to-play player because they provide a lot of siege buffs. So 3 of those attributes are siege, and that's not that great. Another place for some real small buffs is Ideal Land. So when you do complete any of your um, battlefields or doing dailies uh, where you can go to the Civ Expedition thing. You can get the coins, and then those coins can be used to build or to purchase some buildings. In my opinion, should always focus on getting them to level 2, and then just getting a whole bunch of them because there is actually a new feature that they did add to the Ideal Land. So just by having it level 1 doesn't provide very much. It only gives you a march size capacity of 250. That's not affected by your overall march size buff. It's just base. You're able to send 250 more dudes to their death. But by having level 2, you get, in this case, 2% ranged troop HP debuffs. So by acquiring a bunch of these buildings, and then if you go to, I believe it's right here. No, maybe not. Please hold. I don't know where any of these buttons are. Maybe it is like through the event. It might be somewhere here. Ah, right here. So in the ornament gallery, by owning ornaments. So in this case, if you were to have, or I was to have 3 more ornaments, so that'd be like level 1 or whatever that it is, I can get some more range troop and siege attack debuffs, and then more of those gold commemorative coins I was talking about. Then on top of that, there's some for leveling them up. So in this case, own 5 level 3s, and level 3, they level up in the same way the general does. So for 1 to 2 is 1, for 2 to 3 is 3, and so on. So they have the same requirements. I believe it's 17 to get them to 8, but it's 31 to get them to 10. I think that's where they differentiate. I have not taken one to level 10, so I don't know. I'm just speaking out of my ass, but I believe that is how they work. I believe that the buffs only stack up to 1 time with each one of them, so you should always level them up rather than buying multiple level 1s. Like in this case, she did purchase a lot of level 1s, and the only thing that purchasing level 1s gets you is both fame, and I think it also gives you more ideal land score, and you need that ideal land score to level them up to the next level. Leveling up the ideal land does provide some very small buffs. Another thing that you should be leveling up is your victory column. So they do give some small buffs, a big one being march time reduction, and then they give like the construction research speed. They also give basic attribute buffs, and that brings you to developing your generals. If you're developing your generals, you probably not going to run into that issue. So in this case, you need 4, 7.5. A lot of the power comes from Civ gear and dragon levels. That's how you always want to force feed those flying fucking chickens. You want to make sure that they're leveling up as much as you can. What else? Making sure your rally spot's at your keep level. That's a big one, but I just sat down for here, so there's nothing I can really do there. Oh, military optional chests. They're a very finite thing that you can get, and they can be used here in the military tactics tab for drill and breakthrough. And this is one of the things I was saying. There is only two of these things that actually are very meaningful. So when you go for breakthroughs, these buffs are owned to activate. That means no matter what troop you're sending, no matter what tactic you're using, you will gain these buffs. So in this case, say if I was using mounted general, the mounted tactic, all of that, and in rally I would also get another 63% ranged troop attack. So this applies in all scenarios. And even when defending my main city, that I would get minus 20% enemy troop HP. Now with the drill only applies when you're using said tactic. So in this case, I'm getting 26% range troop, siege machine defense by having that tactic on. And when I refer to tactics, when you go to your March preset here, I have arrow barrage tactic, and that is for the range. Now, when you're looking at some of your other tactics, and I see like a big waste in this account, having breakthroughs done on ground troops. So, sure, it provides 60,000 more base troops, but that could have been another 50-60% buffs elsewhere rather than giving you not much of anything. Uh, the drill on them isn't much better. You're not going to get a lot of these scrolls, and you should be focusing more on the range. But that being said, the mounted one is actually fairly decent for mounted troops. But again, you should focus as much as you can on range. And then there's the siege one. You should have nothing done with siege because it is very hard to get to a meaningful buff. What else? Oh, Senate. Place where you can come and cry. So with Senate, Awakening Generals does help out. And that's just, say, doing the Trial of Knights event. You can use some of the Tavern Generals, like the ones that go to the Adventures, as they get 3 red stars for free. And then the last 2, you actually have to insert your Blood of Ares. So Minamoto was a good general a year and a half ago. By now, you should not be using Minamoto. You should be using an actual range general. But nevertheless, you didn't waste any resources on him. You can actually throw him in the Senate because he's an old man and doesn't really want to do anything anymore. You can just sit in a fucking chair and give you some buffs. With all of your Senate seats, they provide 3 buffs that are either in city or defending, and then they provide 3 buffs that are going to be attacking in rally and then your last one is always a base attribute. So you get a lot of buffs by doing this, and it's by like seat type. So in this case, like the Minamoto gives some range, some mounted, some ground, and then same thing with like the mounted one. They give some range, some mounted, some ground. A lot of this helps with both in-city defense and in rally buffs. You can also go to your upgrade position. In this case, another thing that I'm seeing with a lot of wasted resources. So you get your twigs and your berries. So you got Merit Jade, and those are the gold ones. And then you got your glory golden twigs. So those are your twigs and your berries. So your twigs and your berries can be used to get a lot of buffs. Say you're looking to get your governor to level 4, which is not one that I would be recommending you to get, as it gets fairly expensive, and there are more better places to get to use those. You can see if you're able to level them up. Leveling them up does provide these buffs here. So for level 1, 2, 3, you can see those buffs there. They add up a lot. There's a lot of buffs to get in the Senate. It's just a building full of buffs. The attribute to be able to get them up is you have, or the requisite, sorry, you have to have all these in the green, and that is here, and that's where you would use your berries. So by leveling it up, you get the basic one, which in this case for the ground troop governor section is attacking ground troop attack or ground troop HP. But by getting to 5, 10, 15, and 20, they provide some smaller buffs, and that's just kind of like a cherry on top. In-city range troop and like in that governor one, you unlock these by getting your Senate building up higher. And there's also the requisites for them. So in this case, to get the range for your marshal, I need to have my council Senate to level 21. And I believe I can actually do that because the requisite was for victory column level 5, and I did that on this account. And then I never did it. So a lot of the requisites on the council estate are for your victory column, and then on top of that would be for would be unlocks for like battlefield or SVS. So in this case, win server war and earn 540 million monarch scores, which doesn't make any sense because I believe Lily has wings. Must have been a negative loss, I guess, or loss at SVS. But it's neither here nor there. So Senate, great place to get buffs. Another one is with your champions. You always want to, tickle Helen's toes and such what things. You can see like where your overall buffs are on them. With Helen, one of the big ones that you're looking for with her, you get a lot of in-city buffs with Helen. So those are great for defense. You get some smaller debuffs, and then one that might be overlooked a lot is the reinforcement capacity. If you cannot get enough rains, you're just going to catch on fire. Having 3 people reinforce you or having 4 people reinforce you is a massive difference, especially because think of it like we're throwing a rally. If you had 8 coiners reinforcing you rather than 4 coiners reinforcing you kind of thing, there as our actual buffs apply when we are reinforcing, we can kill a lot of troops, especially with the T1 wall protecting a lot of our troops, especially with range. Like range reinforcements don't get touched very much, except for by range attacks or siege attacks, as they can go over top of the T1s and still hit stuff. If you look at some of the other generals though, not her, but her. There is the revive power. So the more you're playing, the bigger you get, the more keep level you get. Your SOL, especially for free to play, is a real finite thing. So having the revive power on from server war is big. A lot of people ask to have their hospital filled. Now, I would specifically say having hospital filled is for a coin or thing to do. It does cost resources to heal, but it doesn't cost SOL to heal. So in this case, I have some troops in here. I can heal this. That it's just resources. It doesn't matter. You get those for free. But what you do not get for free is SOL. Now, if you get zeroed, you are forced to use SOL because it'll go over top of your hospital capacity. I know Lily did a lot of her dailies, and in WoW we killed a lot of Sphinxes. Now, they don't provide much in the way of SOL. If I can find wherever the hell it is in this inventory, unopened everything. Ew. Either or. Let's just say she has 40,000 of it. Okay, so 33,000 of it. If you get zeroed, you're forced to use that. Um, for a lot of smalls, you're only going to be joining 1, 2, maybe 3 rallies in SVS. So maybe thinking of spending the 1 to 3 billion resources in SVS is a vastly better option than spending the 1 to 2 or 1 to 5,000 SOL, as you get resources every day. You do not get SOL every day, right? I see a lot of people complaining that they don't have gold. You need gold to do your research. And one of those ways is from killing knights. A lot of the coiners don't like killing knights because we all have a vast excess of gold. And when we are killing knights, it's typically because we have an excess of one of the good ways to make gold. Maybe turn your auto join off, go teleport around the map, and kill golden goblins. Many people have access to either iScout or somebody that does that may share it with you. Um, they don't provide a lot of gold per attack, but over the course of doing it for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever, you can get a metric fuck ton of gold. So um, I think it's like about a billion gold an hour if you're trying to do it. And what you can do is just bookmark a bunch of golden goblins, and then just teleport around the map like crazy, killing them all. Another way you can get a lot of gold is, I think it is the time of the year for that event, is the golden borrow thing. If you're not buying a lot of packs, I believe it is 2 3x's and 1 2x does get you the necessary level to get your first reward. I don't know who selected Tactical Conundrums. I blame Lily. So you get just straight up 1.2 bill for getting it up to 100, which you cannot do free. But on top of that, whenever you click it, you also get some little bonuses and whatnot. And you get a chance every time you spin to get your first reward for free. I think one time I got both of them for free without buying a pack, but that is stupid unlikely. Another thing you should always really kind of think towards is hitting your first coin. So for 2,500 gems, which is like $10, you can hit your first coin. In my opinion, one of the big things that you should be looking for are the blazon chests and your art scrolls in this section here. You should pretty well always go with Ares, the stones, and the treasure. because these are three things you're not going to be able to get very easily. One thing that, like, maybe a corner might not do is not take the Ares and maybe take the tactic scrolls, because we're going to be more tactic scroll locked than Ares locked, as buying packs does allow you to get some of those. And then over in this section, this, never fucking take this. You're probably going to want to take your resources, and the massive one for free to play would be your SOL. That's a lot of resources. Yes, I said resources are easily readable, but you're going to need your resources to level up your keep so you can burn through your research items. The gold, you can get the gold just by joining rallies on boss monsters, soloing golden goblins and knights. So you should always kind of seek at getting that. If you are looking to coin some by buying 5 packs, you can get solaced. So solacing is having all of these completed, and it gives quite a good chunk of shit as a free and thank you kind of thing. If you're trying to be a little guy and just buying a few packs, by going to Cake 4, using 2 3Xs by $100 packs, does give you 1 conquest box. It also gives you another 3X. So if you were looking at buying a lot of smaller packs, that gives you, one good option. This is a newer thing that they kind of put out with it. So by getting to Cake 4, it gives you 4 of the dragon heads, and that was when they started releasing more packs besides this one, because this one was your big one for getting those monarch gear pieces. And those monarch gear pieces are like these ones here. And I believe like level 7 is the same as level 9 buff wise. And then like getting them up to 8, 9, 10 is when they really start to take over for these ones. But in this case, these ones here, like the basic ones, it gives you ranged troop attack and then like T1 buffs. So if you're being a T1 tribe, you can use the mounted troop spear and or staff. It gives some minor attributes for your T1s. But if you were to use like the Thunder Dagger, it only gives attacking mounted troop attack. It does provide a little bit more buffs than it does elsewhere. And then you have one big thing for both coiners, alts, and mains is if you're joining rallies, to use the March Speed to Monster one. This works for walking towards a monster and back to your castle. The March Speed, though, kind of like basic range troop attack versus in rally or attacking, this will help you walk faster to the rallier. So say Candace is rallying a boss. If you have your March Speed to Monster on, you have a 30-second march to her. But by putting this on, you might have a 27-second march to her. If we are doing, say, Pan, Hydra, or Ymir, a lot of the times, we're saying all aboard the fucking train. You want to get into those rallies. If you have 6 slots, maybe turning off your 6th march can increase the amount of rallies that or decrease the amount of rallies that you're missing, as your 6th one is going to be the last one to come back and is typically going to join the 6th march, and that one is going to be up the least duration. Me specifically, I fire or gem my marches or my rallies at 2 minutes 30 seconds on the 6th one. But at that time, my first one will be at like 145 or 130, something like that. So that gives more time to get into that rally. And typically, that would be the first march to come back. As, for lack of a better term, looking at the drone, watching your eye scout, you're going from closer to farther. So your closer targets are going to be the first ones to be rallied. Unless you are doing like hive spawns and hitting high spawns 5, 6 or something like that. But that's for people that rally to think about those things more than people that are joining. And on the topic of that, using your rally cards every day is a big thing. you know, regardless of being able to get a slot and time to be able to get out and do it, if you are unable to, you should always at least teleport to the four corners of your map and drop them at random. The drone will pick it up. It'll just be a longer march. There's also the Coronation Fountain. The Coronation Fountain, there's some small buffs in here, but by hitting level 21 with them, and unlocks a level fourth ability. And right here there is some overall buff ones. So yeah, fun stuff. I think that's all I can really think of. So goodbye.